After making the college football playoff last season, folks, it's official. Texas is finally back, and they're about to enter a new era in Austin as the Texas Longhorns are now members of the SEC Conference, the best conference in college football as considered by many. However, this is nothing but familiar territory for Steve Sarkisian, and his squad is going to be ready to roll. Can Texas get back on top of the college football mountain? You're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel, and once again, welcome to prediction season day 2 of predictions. Well, guys, what does prediction season mean for me? I'm glad you asked. I predict all 134 FBS level college football teams. It means I do your favorite team, so why don't you go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team has a video up on my channel. And thank you for watching this video. It helps support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine. And if you want to continue to support what I do here on YouTube, like, comment, share, and interact with the channel any way you can. All of it helps support what I do here on YouTube, and I greatly appreciate each and every one of you for doing anything you can to help support me and what I do on this platform. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about Texas football. How do we do that this year? We dive into the team's offense, dive into the team's defense, and then we go ahead, preview and predict every single game that's on the Texas Longhorn football schedule. And that sounds good to me. So let's dive on into talking Texas football. Horns up in 2024. Hey, a couple things before we start. The team's performance, both offensively and defensively, statistically, will be listed above every roster preview. And then for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo down there, I have listed the coaching staff for both the offense and defense. You got to start with the most important position on the field, and we're going to start there right after we talk about this Texas offense from last year, and it was explosive. Almost 36 points per game, almost 500 yards per game, and they could do it all. They could run the ball. They could throw the ball, and while they weren't the greatest on third down, they were a very, very tough offense to stop, but they will be losing a lot of talent to the NFL this year that I will get to as we go position by position. One position they are not losing a big NFL caliber name is their quarterback room. It's the most important position on the field, and Quinn Ewers surprised everybody by announcing he was going to return for this season. Last year, 3,479 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions on 69% completion percentage. Arch Manning will now be his backup as Malik Murphy is off to Duke, and Charles Wright entered the transfer portal as well. Trey Owens is a freshman that comes in. He'll likely be that third string, but this quarterback room is all about Quinn Ewers, and Texas is going to go as far as Ewers is willing to take them, or I should say not willing, but as Ewers is able to take them, and likely is due for a huge campaign. Had a really big 2022, had a pretty okay for his standards 2023. Expect those numbers to take a jump in 2024. Your running back room, well, you lose a 1,000-yard rusher from last year, which is always tough to replace. Jonathan Brooks, 1,139 yards and 10 touchdowns last season. Keelan Robinson off to the NFL, and Red and Brown are off to the transfer portal. However, C.J. Baxter and Jaden Blue are back to highlight this running back room for the Texas Longhorns. Your second and third leading rushers on the team last season combined for over 1,000 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns last year. Quintravion Wisner is going to be highlighting that third spot there as well. But this running back room, again, all about Baxter and Blue as that 1-2 combo. A ton of really talented players leave this team to go play on Sundays. Jordan Whittington, Xavier Worthy, and A.D. Mitchell are all gone here. Worthy, a 1,000-yard receiver from last year. A.D. Mitchell, 800 yards and 11 receiving touchdowns. The former Georgia transfer was outstanding at Texas. And then Whittington, 505 yards, 1 touchdown from last season. You can even go farther deeper. Isaiah Nayer, who just never really found it. Texas is going to be gone through the portal off to Nebraska. Casey Kane gone as well. And let's just go ahead and jump to the tight end room as well. Jatavion Sanders, who was the team's third leading receiver last year with 682 yards, a pair of touchdowns, is gone as well. Along with Jonathan Brooks, I just named your 5 leading receivers from a season ago. But what do they have coming back? Well, in the wide receiver room, Jonte Cook and DeAndre Moore will be back here on this team. While those are solid pieces, Texas had to bulk up through the transfer portal, and they did they did exactly that. Isaiah Bond was the third leading receiver on Alabama last year. Isaiah Bond was the second leading receiver on Alabama last season. Silas Bolden was the leading receiver for Oregon State last year. And Matthew Golden is a really, really good player that comes over from Houston, as well as a freshman in Ryan Wingo that is going to be coming into this program, the 7th overall wide receiver in the class of 2024. He's going to look to make a big impact as well. Your leading receiver coming back is Gunnar Helm, but taking over the tight end position, now we get to talk about the third leading receiver at Alabama last year was Amari Niblack, a really big body that can catch the football, has got great hands, and he comes in through the portal as well. With Christian Jones off to the NFL from the offensive line, your starting five looks like Kelvin Banks, Hayden Connor. I believe it's Connor. Let me fact check that. Apologies for the typo there. I was right. Hayden Connor, DJ Campbell, Cameron Williams, and Jake Majors will be highlighting the offensive line for Texas this year. Okay, let's talk about this offense. It's still going to be as explosive as it was last year, make no mistake about it. Yes, a lot of talented weapons are gone, but Quinn Ewers still has every weapon in the world to work with. Again, your 1-2 punch at running back with Baxter and Blue, I think is going to be sensational. Bond, Bolden, and Golden, that's a pretty good wide receiver name room, if I do say so myself, are exactly what they needed to come in here through the transfer portal. Even Amari Niblack coming in to try to fill the shoes of Jatavion Sanders, I think is going to be really good. The offensive line should be really good again, as it was last year. Quinn Ewers, well, yes, he got sacked 27 times, and losing Christian Jones doesn't help. The offensive line might have to be a little bit better here, but Texas is still going to have an explosive offense. They should see success on the offensive side of the ball, and I predict they're going to be a little bit better on third down than they were last year as well. Diving on into the defensive side of the ball here for Texas, if my slide would change, there it goes. This was a really good defense last season. Now, the weakness came in the secondary, and we'll talk about it when we get there, but it was a really good rush defense, and they allowed under 20 points per game. Exactly the recipe they needed to get to the college football playoff, which they ended up doing. You got to start with the defensive front here. Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat are going to be leaving this team. They were two high-impact players. Sweat, 2 sacks last season, 45 tackles. He was a top 10 tackler. And Byron Murphy, 5 sacks from last season. He was a first-round pick in the NFL draft. Walton and Carter, some depth pieces that leave as well. But this is still a loaded defensive line room. Why? Ethan Burke, 5.5 sacks. He comes back. Baron Sorrell, 4 sacks. He comes back. Alfred Collins had 2 sacks. Vernon Broughton is back. And those are just the returners. I haven't even talked about what they brought in through the transfer portal yet. A couple guys come over from Arizona in Norton and Savea. There are going to be some pretty good depth pieces, but 2 highlights here. Jermaine Lowell comes over from Louisville, and the big get from the transfer portal on the defensive end, or one of them, I should say, Trey Moore comes over from UTSA. 14 sacks and almost 50 tackles. I believe over 50 tackles last season. And he's going to be an exceptional player off the edge for Texas in 2024. Jalen Ford, your leading tackler from last year, 101 tackles, 2 interceptions, is gone to the NFL, but pretty much everyone else comes back in this linebacker room, led by Anthony Hill, 67 tackles, 5 sacks a season ago. He's the leading tackler besides Jalen Ford that returns to this team, and there's a ton of other talent in this linebacker room like Lafau, Jabenda, and Blackwell, as well as a freshman in Colin Simons, however you pronounce that last name, I apologize. He's the highest rated recruit that Texas brought in this year, the number 28 overall player according to 24/7 Sports in the class of 2024. Here's where you start to get a little dicey with the Texas defense because the secondary definitely was the weak point last year, and you do lose a lot of talented players. Ryan Watts is gone to the NFL, and Terrence Brooks is gone to the portal. Watts, 38 tackles last season. You're going to be missing his production, and the Longhorns are a little thin at the cornerback position. Malik Muhammad and Gavin Holmes come back, but they had to go out and get Javion Cole, who I think is actually going to be a pretty good commodity for Texas this year. He comes over from San Jose State, as well as a freshman in Kobe Black comes in. He was a top 60 recruit, actually was the 60th overall recruit, a 4-star according to 24/7 Sports in the class of 2024. Safety position, guys like Thompson, Catalong, and Crawford, they have all entered the transfer portal, all pretty talented players in their own right, but Texas does return a lot of good safety players. Jahdae Barron is coming back, 3rd leading tackler last year, had 59 tackles, 5 passes defended. Michael Taffy is another top 10 tackler. He had 3 interceptions, which was tied for the team lead with a guy that transferred out in Jaron Thompson, as well as Terrence Brooks, who was a corner that left through the portal as well. Derek Williams comes back, but this is the big get for Texas in the portal. Andrew Makuba comes in through the transfer portal over from Clemson, and he's going to bring leadership, experience, and grit to the secondary exactly what Texas needs to improve that to improve that passing defensive number from last year. And hey, kickers are people too. Let's show them some love. Ryan Sanborn, who is a really good punter for this team, has graduated. Michael Kern is going to come in as a freshman to try to fill his shoes, while Bert Auburn comes back at the kicker position. Let's talk about the defense here for Texas. I've said it a million times. Secondary was the weak point. The defensive front is still going to be fantastic. They returned a lot of great players and bulked up through the portal. And I think Colin Simons there at linebacker is going to be a really, really good player. Simmons. My apologies. I think Colin Simmons is going to be a really good player in the linebacker room for Texas. But this defensive back room, they lost a lot of talented players through the portal, some even more talented guys to the NFL. I should say one in Ryan Watts, but Brooks, Thompson, Catalon, Crawford, all those guys could have provided a lot of really good things to this Texas defense. They won't be able to because they're going to go be playing for other programs. So how much of a step up does this defensive back room watch that for Texas in 2024. But let's start talking about the Texas schedule here, shall we? Hey, any game that's underlined is going to be a home game. Any game on the road will be in italics or the slanted text, and any neutral site game is listed accordingly. So any game that gets highlighted in green should be an easy win for Texas. Anyone that gets highlighted in yellow, watch out for it. They could give Texas a scare, but I still think the Longhorns will pull out the win in the end. And of course, red is any loss that I have predicted. Let's just go ahead and dive on into it. And it starts out with an easy win for Texas here in week 1, the last day of August. We'll see the Longhorns, I think, thoroughly beat the Colorado State Rams. No real need to explain that prediction there. Colorado State surely not up to the level that Texas is at. Texas will win in week 1, but this sets up a very interesting matchup here in week 2. The Michigan Wolverines get to play host to the Texas Longhorns in the Big House, and this stadium is going to be absolutely rocking. I think this is a really tough matchup for Texas early on in this season. Now, Texas went on the road and beat Alabama last season, so this is not new territory for Texas at all. And I do think Michigan is going to see their struggles early on this year. I don't love any one of their quarterbacks in their room, whether that's Orji, Warren, or Tuttle. I just don't think either of them are going to be as good a player as J.J. McCarthy was for this team. You'll lose Blake Corum. You lose a ton of really, really good defensive pieces. And while you have a lot returning on defense, they're going to put up some stops against this Texas team. I just don't think that Quinn Ewers and company are going to be silenced for as much as Michigan may need them to here to win this game. And especially with how good this Texas rush defense is, or I should say was last year, and how good they're expected to be this year, I don't see Donovan Edwards doing as much damage as he probably will need to do to help Michigan win this game. The defense comes up with a couple big stops, but Quinn Ewers leads Texas to a win on the road in the Big House against the Michigan Wolverines in week 2. We're going to go ahead and dive on into week 3 in week 4 here. Hey, Trey Moore gets to face his former team. I think he's going to have a field day as Texas beats UTSA, and they should have no problem with University of Louisiana Monroe as well. Now we get to dive in to the... My apologies for that. We get to dive on into the first ever SEC schedule for the Texas Longhorns, and it starts with Mississippi State, a team that I think just has to put a couple pieces together. I mean, Will Rogers kept a lot of that team intact. He helped them win some games. They're going to need to fill his shoes as he is gone. A couple other really talented transfers are gone, and I know they're bringing in some good talent, but I kind of need to see it to believe it with Mississippi State. So I am putting Texas there as a pretty easy win heading in to their first bye week of the season. Again, with this being kind of a weird year, there being an extra weekend in the college football season, teams will each be getting 2 bye weeks. And how about this for a week 7 matchup? The first ever Red River rivalry. It brings its storied history to the best conference in college football. That is the Southeastern Conference. Of course, will still be played in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas. And I really do like Oklahoma this year. I think the defense is going to take another step up from where it has been the past couple of seasons. And I think Jackson Arnold is a stud. And he has got a lot of returning weapons to be able to throw to. And this should be your classic Red River rivalry shootout. Oklahoma was the lone team to beat Texas last season. I don't foresee that playing out this year. I see Texas beating Oklahoma in Dallas. I think it's going to be a hell of a game, an offensive shootout, but the defense for Texas I like just a little bit better than I like for Oklahoma. I like them to make the more crucial stop, and Texas walks away with the win at Red River. However, coming off that tough game against Oklahoma, Texas is going to be battered a little bit. You get to come back home and play a Georgia team that I think is just going to be really, really good. Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers, that is a great quarterback matchup there. And unfortunately for Texas, I think the physicality of Georgia is just going to be able to handle them a little bit. I just think the physicality level for Georgia is going to be able to take advantage of some of the weaknesses that Texas poses on their offensive line that they showed last year, and especially because of how good this Georgia pass game I foresee it being this season. I think the lack of necessary depth in the defensive back position is going to cost Texas here, and Georgia beats Texas in DKR Memorial Stadium to hand the Longhorns their first loss of 2024. However, they should rebound nicely with a win over Vanderbilt because it's Vanderbilt. Sorry to all of my Commodore fans out there. Could be a program trending in the right direction, but Texas is too talented to lose that game. And then you head into your bye week as your second bye week here. So you came off a couple tough games here. You got that kind of pick-me-up, get-back win against Vanderbilt, and then you get this game against Florida. The Gators are a tricky team to try to gauge here. They got a lot of good talent. Yes, some good talent leads to the portal. Trevor Etienne is a player that has gone over to Georgia, as well as some other really talented defensive players have left this team. And Billy Napier's team has a hard schedule, but that's only going to make Florida compete harder and harder. I think they could give Texas a little bit of a rough time here, but I see the Longhorns being able to pull away in the second half. Just too much offensive firepower for Florida to come back from, and Texas gets win number 8 of the college football season. They will also go on the road here against Arkansas. Ooh, a rivalry renewed. I think Arkansas is actually going to give this Texas team a little bit of trouble. Now, they do lose KJ Jefferson and a lot of other really good weapons, both offensively and defensively. A lot of people were surprised that Sam Pittman was able to keep his job, but I see Arkansas being able to give Texas a fight here in this rivalry-esque game, but Arkansas will lose. Texas will win, as they will go beat Kentucky the next week there as well. Former Georgia quarterback Brock Vandagriff looking to be the starter. Not enough weapons on defense to slow down this Texas offense, and Texas defense could have a field day on that offensive line there as well. And Texas and Texas A&M. The battle of the teams in Texas. You want to guess who I have winning that one? I have the Longhorns winning that one. Could be a really tough game, though. Mike Elko's first year. If Connor Weigman is able to take that huge leap, Texas A&M could be really good. But overall, I got Texas sitting at 11-1 here. So for their first season in the SEC, for all intents and purposes, this is the team that could be heading to the SEC championship game. Just that one lone loss at Georgia after coming off the tough win at Red River. Let me know what you guys think about the Texas Longhorns in the comment section below. And as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. Oregon, you're coming up next. Goodbye.